Hello and welcome to my third video. Today I'd like to look at ghosts and legends in and around Kinver. The observant amongst you will notice that it's actually daytime, and I'll tell you now, if you think I'm going looking for ghosts in the dark, you're very much mistaken. I don't really know if I'm a believer in ghosts. Hard to say. I think I'm what they call an open-minded skeptic. I'm open to the possibility, but I'm not 100% convinced that there is such a thing. I've seen a lot of evidence over the years, usually on TV, admittedly, but I do have some personal experience too, which perhaps one day I might share that with you too. In the meantime, let's go out and about, and I'll show you some of the locations where supposed sightings have taken place, and in some cases where I can, a bit of history behind them. So we'll head off. Oh, by the way, some of the items were actually filmed a couple of days ago because I wanted to catch a particular anniversary, so we'll come to that a bit later on. Right, well, I've just come down from the church to the first location, which is here at the entrance to the scout camp. Now, this is a bit of a strange one for me because I've actually lived around here for a very long time, and it was only when I was actually researching for this video that I heard this story or came across this story for the first time. Apparently, the spirit of a young girl by the name of Lottie has been seen in this vicinity. Now, Lottie worked at the White Hart and was abducted, apparently, on her way home from work one day, carried away up here, where she actually managed to escape from her captor and run off. Apparently they followed her footprints in the snow. It snowed that day, sorry, and they followed the footprints for some time until suddenly they just stopped in the middle of nowhere, and they couldn't find her anywhere. And apparently since then she was never seen again, except of course for her ghost has allegedly been seen in the vicinity, but personally I have no experience of it. It was allegedly in the mid-1850s, and I've done quite a bit of research, but I can't find any historical information whatsoever to back this up. So as I say, I'm not really sure about this one, but there you go, that's the story. So continuing down from the scout camp, we're still in the Comper. We're now at the junction of the Comper and Comber Road, and strangely enough, I've read in several publications and also on some online articles that the Comper is supposed to be the most haunted part of Kinver. I find that a bit strange because apart from Lottie, who we've just discussed, the only other ghost that I know that's associated with this area is a character known as Old Joe. Old Joe has been seen, or has been seen by residents of the Comper, allegedly, dressed in a brown waistcoat, a very well worn collarless shirt, brown trousers, working boots and a cloth cap. Some reports say he has a moustache, other reports say he was clean shaven. Now, Old Joe was seen so frequently by Reg and Joan Davis, who used to own the picnic basket up the way there, that they actually used to set a place for him at their dining table. Joan Davis was one of the people that told us that there actually used to be a gallows tree on this corner here. In fact, in the 1990s, you could actually still see the remains of a large tree stump here. No idea what type of tree it was, no idea whether it really was a gallows tree or not, but yeah, there was certainly a tree stump there. Having studied some old photographs, it's possible that the gallows tree might actually have been on this corner here. I have actually seen an old photo which has got a significant tree right in the corner, roughly in front of the gate here. And it might sound silly, but it looks far more suitable as a gallows tree. I can't find any historical records that indicate the location or the existence of either of those sites, but again, who knows? For our next location, I've brought you to Gibbet Wood and what was once Gibbet Lane. This is probably the best known location around Kinver for odd happenings and things. You've got Gibbet Wood over here currently on our right, and you can just about make out Gibbet Lane. I can't believe that I actually used to be able to drive down here. Used to use it as a shortcut sometimes coming home from work. Anyway, Gibbet Wood and Gibbet Lane weren't always called that. Prior to 1813, they used to be known as Fir Tree Hill and Fir Tree Lane. Unfortunately, in December, it was the 18th of December 1812, a little incident took place here. Local farmer Benjamin Robbins was on that evening making his way home to Dunsley, having had a successful day at the market in Stourbridge. And bear in mind, this was actually then one of the main routes, if not the main route, between Kinver and Stourbridge. So he was heading back along this way. What he didn't realise was he was being followed. One William Howe was following him discreetly. I say discreetly, he was apparently dressed in a tricorn hat and a long coat with 2 pistols secreted about his person. He was the epitome of a highwayman in every way, except he didn't have a horse, apparently. Apparently he couldn't afford one, or so they say. Well, at some point along the lane, Howe caught up with Benjamin Robbins, shot him and robbed him. Took his money, watch and anything else he could find of any value, and left him for dead. Robbins actually wasn't dead. He did survive, well, for a little while, and he was able to manage to stagger and struggle his way back home, where he had medical help, but unfortunately, despite that, he did die several days later, but not before, of course, he could give a description of his attacker. There were several other witnesses who had seen William Howe that evening, watching Robbins in the pub, and also he'd been spotted along the way following him. It was such a horrifying case at the time that the Stourbridge magistrates actually called in Bow Street runners to investigate, and they actually managed to track down William Howe, and amassed quite a bit of evidence to show that he was the perpetrator. Howe was taken to Stafford, where he went on trial in March, so that's 1813 now. He was found guilty very, very quickly by the jury and sentenced to death. He was hung in Stafford on the 18th of March 1813. That's exactly 209 years ago today, as it happens. Now, the normal process was his body would have been cut up and disposed of, but there was a special request from the Stourbridge magistrates that his body be returned here and gibbeted at the place, or close to the place where the crime had been committed. A gibbet was made by Mr. John White, and the actual gibbeting was done by Mr. Tom Baker. His body was bound with hoop iron and hung up by a loop of iron over his head. He was in a sort of metal cage, and he was hung there for some 12 months or more. It is said then that the dried flesh was left at the gibbet, where a pack of hounds once found it some time afterwards. Now, it's likely that he remained in the gibbet for probably 12 months, maybe more, but now unfortunately there are several conflicting stories about what happened next. According to the County Express, it published an article in 1912, a Mr. Downing, a surgeon, had decided to acquire the remains for himself, and whilst trying to get it down he heard somebody coming, and in alarm he slipped down from the gibbet and hid, lying flat on the ground. Well, while he was there, unfortunately for him, the remains of the body fell on him and he had to remain there motionless with it lying on top of him until the people had passed. Apparently he took it away, kept the skeleton joint with wire hanging in his hall, and used to use it to frighten visitors with. It was later reported to be in the possession of a Dr. Giles. However, in his book Tales of Terror, author Aristotle Trump claims that in 1903 a skeleton was unearthed near the spot with a rusty dagger stuck in its ribcage. Now, we don't know whether that's true or not. We don't know whether it was the remains of William Howe. The idea was that he would have been staked through the heart to keep his spirit from escaping. So, as I say, we've got conflicting stories of what actually happened to his remains. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly where the gibbet was. Probably somewhere in this vicinity, maybe near that bend there, possibly a little bit further over, right close to the end of the woods down here. It was supposed to have been set up at the site where the actual murder took place, but as I say, unfortunately that's now been lost in time and we don't know. In 1813, a group of 3 lads who had admittedly had a drink or two came by to view the corpse of William Howe. They stood below the gibbet, looked up at him and asked, "Will Howe, how bist thee?" They were utterly petrified when the corpse replied, "Cold and clammy." There's no record of what happened to them after that. I presume they legged it out of there as quickly as possible. There's also another story of a lady in the 1940s who was walking home this way one star-lit, moonlit evening when she became aware of a person following her. The person passed her and she described him as tall, with an extremely long neck which seemed to wobble from one side to the other. When the figure reached the site where the gibbet was, apparently it disappeared. Apparently the gibbet itself was removed some years later by a G. Thompson, who was the steward of Prestwood at the time, and they used part of it to make uprights for a stile. They'd been having a problem where the stile, or a particular stile, was being continually stolen, but once they rebuilt it using parts of the gibbet, there seemed to be no problem at all in it staying put. Well, I don't know if the spirit, the ghost of William Howe, is finally at rest now. Hard to say. I haven't heard any recent reports of strange goings on here in Gibbet Wood. However, if you're interested in looking, tonight would be a good night for it. If it's the 209th anniversary of when he was actually executed in Stafford, perhaps that would be a time when he might be most active. But to be honest with you, I think it's all quiet. Now, you might recognise this location from the previous video. We're back at the corner of Sandy Lane and Gypsy Lane. The reason we're here is that a ghost has been sighted here of a gentleman in a suit and a top hat, well-dressed fellow, well presented. It's been seen on a couple of occasions, but unfortunately nobody knows who he is or indeed why he's here. There are stories around a witch tree that's supposedly at the base of Kinver Edge, where local witch trials and hangings took place, and activity has been seen, ghosts and various apparitions, in that vicinity. Now, I've got to be 100% honest with you, I'm not sure if this is the location or not. I believe it is, but perhaps somebody who knows better might be able to comment below and let us know if you believe different. We're at the base of Kinver Edge, just by the rock houses, there's a very significant, which I believe is an elm tree, by the way. And just across the way, though, just over there, is actually what appears to be an even older one, or larger one. Maybe that's the one. I don't know. If you do, please comment below and enlighten us. As I said, this tree actually looks to me to be older and more substantial than that one out in the middle there. So maybe this is the location we're looking for. The elm tree, or gallows tree elm. In years gone by, the wife and I used to enjoy a pint here from time to time. Sadly, no longer a pub, now a private residence. There used to be information inside the pub relating to a gallows where a young lad who had been accused of becoming a parliamentarian recruit was hung by the Royalists in the 1640s. I don't know if anybody else was hung there, but the name stuck and remained ever since. For our final location today, I've brought you to the Whittington. Well, I always know it as the Whittington. I believe it's now called the Manor House of Whittington, but let's stick with the Whittington, shall we? There are actually 3 ghosts associated with this area here. We'll deal with the first one while we're outside here. First one is a highwayman, mounted on a horse, who's been seen on several occasions along the stretch of road between here and the Stew Pony. Once by a nurse who was on her way home from a night shift in the early hours, was absolutely petrified and actually swerved her car to avoid him as the horse galloped along the side of the road and then suddenly turned across the road right in front of her. He just disappeared at the side of the road, not to be seen again. This ghost has been referred to on a number of occasions as Captain Kitson, a notorious highwayman. Funny thing is, I can't find out any information whatsoever about a highwayman, notorious or otherwise, called Captain Kitson. And I do wonder if this is just a name that somebody's made up at some time for this ghost and it's just stuck. I don't know. Other possibilities is there was quite a bit of civil war action in this vicinity. We know that Staunton Castle was involved, and also that there was a battle on what was known then as Stourbridge Heath between the Royalists and the parliamentarians. Nobody knows the exact location of Stourbridge Heath. It's believed to be to the south of the town, maybe round Mary Stephen's Park, but the whole of that area was heathland back in those days, so they don't really know. So what I'm trying to get around to saying is, maybe it wasn't a highwayman that they saw, maybe it was a Civil War parliamentarian soldier. Could be mistaken for a highwayman perhaps, I don't know. It's also said that Charles II came this way when escaping from Worcester after he'd been defeated at the Battle of Worcester. He actually came up this way and across via Stourbridge. So could it be him that was seen galloping across the road in the middle of the night? Who knows? So here we are inside the Whittington. Allegedly the original manor house of Sir William de Whittington, built in 1310. There are those that dispute this was actually the manor house for the region, and also the provenance that allegedly this was the house of the grandfather of the legendary Dick Whittington, Lord Mayor of London. I've done a bit of research, and to be honest with you, I can't conclude either way, so that remains for the academics to discuss, I think. In the meantime, it's a lovely place inside. Just look at it, fabulous. There are allegedly 2 ghosts that have been seen here. The first is a monk-like figure. Don't really know much about him. I know that there's a priest hidey hole here that was occupied or used by a Jesuit priest. Now, I don't know if a Jesuit priest could be mistaken for a monk. I don't know if they look similar, perhaps. I don't know. But the other one, and the more significant one, is a lady who's seen descending the stairs here, walking across and then disappearing through the wall just over there. It's believed to be the spirit of Lady Jane Grey. Lady Jane Grey was Queen of England for just 9 days, but was beheaded just at the tender age of 16 or 17. Now it's alleged that she stayed here for a little while when she was quite young, and that's her spirit that's been seen on several occasions. Who knows? There's a painting here depicting the ghost, probably Lady Jane Grey, descending the staircase. Well, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have and you can, please subscribe below, that would be brilliant. Otherwise, I'd also like to hear from anybody who maybe you disagree with anything I've said today, or perhaps you know more about any of the locations we've discussed today, or maybe you know of other locations or other incidents in and around our area that might be of interest. In any of those cases, I'd really love to hear from you, and in the meantime, I'll hope to see you again in the next video. Cheers for now.